Hi, welcome to this edition of Along the ForestApps Road podcast. I'm Tim Ard and glad to be your host today. We're going to be talking through a little bit on a question I got from one of the followers, Roy Montan. He asked about the use of wedges with heavy leaning trees. And so I've got a few tips that have been shared with me over the years, and hopefully it helps you out if you have a situation with a heavy side leaner. You know, ropes are something that can give you quite a lot of support if it's rigged properly and tied properly. Uh, but also, there's situations where you're not dealing directly with, structures or situations there that sometimes just a wedge can help with that situation. In other words, it can support the hinge. So I want to share just a few things here. I made just a couple of drawings, and let's see about this. One thing is looking at a back cut first of all. In other words, if you kind of picture, you put in the face notch, whatever, and you want to make sure that face notch is open enough to allow the hinge to work, so it controls the tree to its at least a 70-degree position. That maintains your steering. And think about that. If your back cut is level pretty much to the apex of the face notch, it can only really more or less compress that fiber down about 3/8 of an inch, because the just the kerf from the chainsaw bar. If the tree starts to go forward, the hinge breaks from the back to the front, and if there's any heavy side weight, it more or less kind of collapses until it's on ingrained fiber. If you go up an inch or two or three or whatever in a stump shot situation, they call it, and the tree starts to go forward, then you can see that this hinge area here would become more or less just in fiber, 2 inches long, that can be compressed. So if you have a lot of side weight, it can start to sit over, and you basically compromise your steering ability of that hinge. So loss of control is very easy. If you use a rope with the tree, you know that gives you some good mechanical advantage from the top. But still, if that hinge collapses or twists off, you can end up not being able to control even with a rope, unless you've got two or three that's actually rigging that tree or limb to the ground. So something to think about there. So that's one thing to consider, is the height of the back cut. So if something is critical, I generally try to keep the back cut as level as possible to the face notch. A lot of times people say, well, what about butt rebound? You know, it could come back. Well, actually, as long as that hinge is there, there's very little chance. Even if it hits another tree or whatever, it pretty much stays intact on the stump because of the hinge. The actual stump shot, leaves a ledge there, and that's what people look at from butt rebound. Now, if you use less than a 70-degree face notch, you definitely want to concentrate on having a minimum of 1 to 2 inches higher on that back cut, because as soon as the face notch closes, if it closes at 45, there's a high chance of butt rebound. But if you've got 70 degrees or more in the face notch, that allows that tree's hinge to work until it gets pretty much parallel to the earth. And that's what you want to do to limit out the chance of butt rebound. Now, the other thing that I want you to consider is in using a hinge and having the height of it, because you can use a wedge to do somewhat the same. So if you use a stump shot, you could drive a wedge in on the leaning side as you get up closer to the hinge. Now, I generally prefer to do this with a bore cut. In other words, I would bore cut through the tree, establish the hinge, cut back, and leave. You've got a kerf between those 2 points. Place the wedge in there to support the hinge, then release the tree. Now, this would be a forward-leaning tree with heavy side lean to the side. And when I say side lean heavy, that would be probably something with more than 4 feet. Most of the time, you can control according to the tree, but not as much the species as the specific tree. You control up to 4 feet pretty easy. I have had pretty decent control with this techniques, even thinking about 6, 8 feet in some cases. Now you want to make sure there's not an object there that's in danger, but if you want to see what can control that hinge offset for the amount. So if you put a target out here and you've got 5 foot of side lean or 6 foot of side lean, you want to aim to the opposite side of your target, that same amount of the center of the tree. And we can explain more of that later, but it's something that is important in placing that center of the crown in a given location. But that hinge can help to support, and so it makes for a pretty accurate hinge control. So give that a try if you get a chance. And I suggest you try it with no serious objects around or situations that you can damage, power lines, those kinds of things. But once you understand how that hinge can control, it's quite amazing what it can do. Well, I've had a good week, and we are moving, coming up closer and closer. I have cleaned out my shop. I've got a lot of things on my YouTube channel is put in on the Spotify. If you go there, you can kind of see the my Spotify account. That's Forest Apps at forestapps.myspotify.com, and take a look at that. This also, you can find a link off of our our website at www.forestapps.com, or send me an email at info@forestapps.com. I'll be glad to forward you the link to that. Got some really good deals on sharpening and a lot of different accessory items, some safety clothing, different things. So it's a pretty good bargain. So take a look at it off our site. I hope you find something you need. And we're going to be moving, so I'm not quite sure about next week's podcast. I may play something from earlier sessions, so we're going to be kind of tied up most of next week. But I appreciate you dropping by today, and I want to thank you. And hopefully you've been able to pick up something there to think about. And I hope to see you along the ForestApps road. Good sawing to you.